Here's the fuel pump I got off. It smells like old varnish. Definitely needs to be rebuilt, cleaned up, put back together. Looks like it had been leaking for a long time. Yeah, I'll start taking that apart and see if I can get some rebuild parts. Taking the cover off the side of the fuel pump just to take a look at the impeller. Impeller doesn't look too bad. Lots of dirt, lots of varnish. Definitely need an O-ring. But all in all, it's not too corroded inside. There's the inlet to the fuel pump. You see all the darkness and the dirt that's in there. I'm gonna have to clean all that out and rebuild it. And I'll take off the outlet pipe now. I've got the fuel pump apart. The little motor was jammed. The electric side was jammed up as well. Took off the lid. The bearings are frozen. All that came out of the electrical end of the pump. So I'm gonna take it further apart and see if it was just leaking gasoline into the pump and coagulating and rusting. We'll see what happens. Got the fuel pump apart. This is the armature. You can see the bearing on the end is completely gone. The ball bearings are gone out of the race. One on this end, bearing is completely stuck. Doesn't roll, doesn't move anything. If I can get the bearings and brushes, because the brushes are completely gone as well, it might work. But if those things aren't available, this pump is trash. Fuel pump number 2. There was another fuel pump in the back of the car. Looks like the electric side is better than the first one we took apart. But the gas side is really gummed up. Each of these bolts was stripped off. And they're stuck in the case. A lot of corrosion. So maybe I can make one out of both of them. Yeah, got the pump has been apart for a while. Cleaned up the insides. There's my new parts, new O-rings, new bearings, new brushes. I'll start cleaning up the cap a little bit. Put the brushes, or solder the brushes in. And we'll start assembling. One of the pieces you have to put in is this tiny little piece of brass that goes into that slot right there. There's nothing that holds it on, so I put a little grease on it to maybe hold it in place long enough for me to get the impeller on. This is the pump being rebuilt. I already installed the new brushes in the bottom to get the electric working, tested the motor. Now I'm installing the impeller and the pieces associated with that. Well, there's the fuel pump fully assembled. I connected to the battery one more time just to make sure it works. Everything seems to be functional at the moment. Started cleaning up the intake manifold. Took one injector line off to see how bad it is. You can see in there that's all crusty. So every one of those lines has to be taken off, cleaned out, and then I'm going to have to check the injectors too, because I'm sure they're crusty as well. Got a lot of gunk and corrosion and dirt in each injector line. I loosened this up earlier. This gives you access to the injectors themselves. There's the injectors. I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to be any good with all that coagulated corrosion in the gas itself. But I'm going to go through one piece at a time. Doesn't look good. Here's the fuel distribution block. I'm taking each piece apart to clean it out. It doesn't look as bad as I thought it would be on the inside, but each output was quite corroded and gummed up. Inside doesn't look too bad. That one looks a little bad. It's got some corrosion on it. I tested all the injectors and the distribution blocks with my, actually it's a diesel injector tester, but it was able to make sure I get flow through and all the dirt was out of it. Each injector and each block was attached to the port there, and a little bit of pressure just to make sure they're all clear. There's the intake manifold. I got it all cleaned up. All the grease off, excess gasket sealers off. Start to put the injectors and the lines back on once I get those cleaned up. Begin to put the hard lines back on between the distributor blocks and the injectors. Each one of the lines is cleaned out. I cleaned the outside, I cleaned the inside. I soaked them in lacquer thinner for a while to get any gasoline that might be stuck in the tubes loose and undone. I'm going to keep continuing with each of the lines and cleaning them and putting them on. These are the injector blocks. This bolt here holds in both injectors. Injectors just slip in, slide out, and stick out the port there. I was having trouble getting power to the fuel pump. It looks like somebody welded on the outside and melted the wires together. I'll take it apart and see how bad it is. See if I can just splice in a few pieces down in here. I didn't want to connect up the whole harness because I'm not sure if anything's connected. Somebody else took things apart and I just don't want to start a fire. So I have all the injectors bled, and I got just the starter solenoid connected to this wire. I'm going to just crank it over without spark plugs in it just to see, and you can see the injection. So I got fuel to the injectors and it's injecting into the cylinders. I think I have a couple more to bleed, but got some in there. That's a good start. My injector pump's working. Okay, I'm going to try to hot wire this 220 SE. Got the fuel pump wired up just to keep all the electric out of the wiring harness because I don't know what the condition of it is. I got the hot wire going to the ignition coil, and I got a hot wire going to the starter here.